County. I'm coming to you live today, so this isn't a pre-recorded, straight from Multnomah County headquarters here in Portland, Oregon. So let's get going. Let me see if I can advance my slides first. So my goals for today's presentation is to kind of give you an overview of how PropertyFit works. And then also to talk about how we can take this model and expand it to other counties and cities in Oregon. But I wanted to start first by saying, by giving you an explanation of why we chose to pursue this program in the first place. And the main reason is that Multnomah County has a long history, especially in partnership with the city of Portland, of working on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, carbon emissions. And based on our carbon inventory, we've seen that about 22% of emissions actually come from the commercial building sector. And so that has led us to develop a variety of policies, and this one in particular, to help incentivize transition to clean energy and energy efficiency in the in commercial buildings. So I wanted to keep a few key concepts in mind as we go today. PropertyFit is based on a national model called Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. This was or Property Assessed Clean Energy, which is really a policy that started in California, but is now spread across the country and is active in 22 states. It makes it easier for commercial building owners to invest in energy efficiency, renewable energy, a variety of other measures that I'll get into, and seismic safety. And those measures tend to vary a little bit from state to state, but I'll talk today specifically about what's been authorized here in Oregon. There's no requirement that the public sector put any money into this program. So the public sector isn't making loans. This is really privately financed. But that being said, it requires the public sector to get involved in legislatively authorizing the program and in helping to set it up and administer it over time. So the other kind of key difference, I think, for Oregon or Multnomah County's program is the legislature kind of gave us a variety of pathways we could use to secure the debt, and I'll get into that more in a couple of minutes. But the main point that I want to make is here it's tied to a benefit assessment lien. So it's not tied to the property taxes. The debt is still junior to the property taxes, however, senior to all other debt. So let me move on here and talk a little bit more about PropertyFit, or the Oregon or the Multnomah County version of CPACE. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself by calling it the Oregon version of CPACE. So one really important factor is that this is a partnership. So we're not going it alone as Multnomah County. And I think this is going to be true for any community that wants to implement a similar program. Here we have Prosper Portland as our program administrator. I'll talk more about what role that is. Multnomah County, we really authorize the program, and we have some specific roles in the program as well. And then Energy Trust of Oregon really has served as a technical advisor and can help to layer in energy incentives and technical assistance for building owners that make it more feasible for them to make these investments that to be coupled with financing. I mentioned already that this is based on a national model, and that national model has gotten quite a bit of exercise over the past few years. Over $1 billion in investments nationally, and these numbers are a little bit dated, so the number kind of ticks up every day. And then over 2,000 projects. And a recent report from the Renewable Energy Lab, the National Renewable Energy Lab, showed that only one of those projects has gone into default. So we see incredible performance with this particular type of financing. And it's currently available only in Multnomah County, but all of Multnomah County. So that's an exciting opportunity, not just for the city of Portland, but also some of the smaller cities like Gresham, Fairview, Troutdale. So why is this an important tool? What does it do? Why would we need this versus other forms of commercial lending? Well, first of all, it's targeted. So a lot of times when you're developing a commercial project, you're going to worry about, what can you afford? Or on an existing building, can you afford investments in energy efficiency? and it might kind of drop down to the bottom of your list. Here, we're able to offer a product that is 100% of the financing, so there's no out-of-pocket expenses. We also have some sort of, we kind of have some concierge services to help you kind of walk through the process. The financing is amortized or spread out over the life of the measures. So we can think about this as your home loan, where you have a mortgage that you can spread out over 15 to 30 years. That helps keep the payments low on a month-to-month basis. And that's kind of rare for this type of lending in the commercial sector. It's non-accelerating. That means that if you miss a payment, you do not automatically have to pay the total past due amount. You only have to pay what you owe. It can transfer upon sale, so it's not tied to the owner of the building. It's tied to the building itself. And depending, it can generate immediate cash flow. So something that building operators often look for is the net operating income. And by lowering energy costs, you can actually be saving more than you're spending on servicing the debt. And we talked a little bit about corporate social responsibility and market appeal. These are investments that can help with those goals as well. So there's a few entities that kind of participate in the program. Here in the middle, you can see we have the building owner. So really, this has to be authorized. The lending has to be authorized by the building owner. We have the capital provider, the contractor, the PropertyFit program, and the Energy Trust of Oregon. So the Energy Trust of Oregon is going to work with the building owner to help evaluate what kind of energy efficiency or renewable energy measures are suitable for that particular building. The capital provider will help to finance that debt, all or a portion of the debt that's needed to pay for those energy improvements. The building owner will work with a contractor. Energy Trust has a bunch of contractors in their network, but the building owner can just work with any contractor that they feel comfortable with. The contractor will perform the work, and then the capital provider will receive payments from the building owner. And the PropertyFit program will ensure that the program, that the project conforms with our guidelines as they're laid out both in statute and within our own rules. To get into this a little bit more, let's look at the role of Prosper Portland. You see this little symbol here in the middle. So we have Multnomah County all the way on the left. Next symbol is the Prosper Portland symbol. And then we have the borrower or the building owner and the capital provider. And what we see here is that the Multnomah County is giving our authority established under Oregon law. We're transferring it through an intergovernmental agreement to the Prosper Portland. Prosper Portland administers the program on our behalf. The borrower kind of establishes the project they want to, as I just talked about, gets money from the capital provider. The capital provider, gives them, pays for the project up front, and then the borrower will repay the loan over the life, over the agreed upon terms that can be amortized out over the life of the measures, the useful life of the measures. So if you can imagine some solar panels have, an average lifespan of 20 to 25 years. So you can amortize the cost of the solar panels, less incentives out over that 20, 25 years. And then we, Prosper Portland on our behalf is ensuring that the transaction meets the terms and conditions of the lending, and it then records a lien against the property, this benefit assessment lien that I mentioned previously, with the county. And really the only time that the county is getting involved in a transaction would be if the transaction moves into default, if the borrower stops payment. The ultimate cure for non-payment is foreclosure. However, there's numerous points along the line where those, we would try to work with the borrower to prevent foreclosure. And as I mentioned previously, when we look out over all the transactions nationally, only one of them has moved into foreclosure. Now, what kind of buildings are eligible under the PropertyFit model? So you see up here, both existing and new buildings are eligible. The approach to financing is a little bit different for both, and I can go into that if people are interested. But there's a wide variety of commercial buildings that are eligible. So it could be your kind of standalone mom and pop Main Street business. It could be an office building. It could be a multifamily building with 5 or more units. It could be a hotel. It could be any kind of nonprofit building. It could be industrial space. It could be mixed use. So there's really a wide variety of buildings. Really the only exception here is government buildings and buildings, residential buildings. So single family residential properties or 4 or 5 or 4 or fewer units. And then what can be financed? Well, there's a huge variety of things that have been authorized under the legislation that was passed by the Oregon legislature. But I'm going to kind of tick off a few. One is energy efficiency. So we know that in order to decarbonize our economy has to become much more efficient. There's loads of opportunities within our existing buildings and new buildings to improve energy efficiency. So that could look like a building envelope, window replacements, HVAC systems, etc. But the key here is that the improvement has to be tied to the building. So for example, a refrigerator that's really energy efficient but can be moved out of the building wouldn't be eligible for financing, but an HVAC system, heating and cooling system would be. Renewable energy systems. So solar panels, ground source, geothermal, etc., would be allowed under the terms of the program. Energy storage. So we see this as being a key kind of resilience measure. So energy storage could also be financed. Electric vehicle charging. And importantly, at least for us out here on the west side of the Cascades, seismic resilience, where we know that the big one is coming, and the ability to survive the big one really depends on the quality of your building, seismic resilience of the building. I just wanted to mention one other thing. Sometimes when you want to put in an energy efficiency measure, you have to make other upgrades. So we can, going back to the solar panel example, you can imagine wanting to put solar panels on your rooftop, but the roof needs to be replaced. Well, you can actually finance the roof replacement, which is probably something you need to do anyway, with PropertyFit in order to facilitate the installation of the solar panels. So really the cool thing about PropertyFit is you can turn a capital expense into a benefit for your building, which is that you're taking care of deferred maintenance, but you're also either creating renewable energy or lowering your bills or both. This is kind of gets a little bit sort of esoteric for those of us who aren't finance nerds, but one of the benefits, this really goes into the new building space, is that you can lower your overall interest payments on a new building. So when a project developer is looking to construct something new, and when I say new, I mean not just a sort of ground up building that wasn't there before, but we can also imagine a building that is going to be totally gut renovated. So it just comes down to studs, and then all new systems are going in, finishes, etc. So in the new building space, the property developer is looking at what they refer to as the capital stack, and that's the sort of various investors that are going to come in either with their own money or money from borrowers, from banks in effect. And they all expect a rate of return, and that's the interest that you pay. So one of the nice things is that the secure nature of a PropertyFit loan allows it to have more competitive rates. And so you can swap out a portion of your overall debt with PropertyFit financing, and that PropertyFit financing carries with it a lower interest rate. For new buildings, depending on the circumstances, I think we're up to 25% of the overall cost. So we're not on new buildings, we're not financing measures. We are looking at the overall performance of the building in terms of energy and seismic resilience, and then financing up to a certain percentage of the overall of the total cost of the building. So this just kind of makes that point a little bit more clearly. You know, you look at equity or ownership stake, that typically demands a 15% rate of return. Mezzanine debt or mezz debt is about a 10% rate of return. Property fit is running around 6%, and then senior debt is around 5%. So you can see that if you could take out some of that mezz debt at around 10% rate of return and swap it in with your property fit debt, you can actually lower the overall debt payments on the building. And so that's, you know, we're looking at about 60 basis points there in this example of the weighted average of the debt. That's a pretty big deal, especially when you're looking at millions of dollars. So this is a real program. I want to emphasize that. This isn't sort of something theoretical. We have a bunch of enrolled capital providers. These are institutions that lend money to projects. And we've also closed a number of projects, totaling about $10 million. So we've closed 4 projects so far. We have more projects in the pipeline. And those projects are so it's pretty interesting. I'll talk about 2 of them here. So first, the first one is called Premier Gear. This is in Northwest Portland. It was kind of like an industrial site, and the developer remodeled it for Class A office use space. And they were able to use PropertyFit financing to finance the seismic improvements. So, you know, when you rebuild a building or rehab a building, you have to bring it up to modern seismic standards. And they were able to get $3 million of financing through the program for this project. The next one is the Kex Hostel. This is in, I guess, southeast Portland, right near the Broadway Bridge. And this is a really awesome reuse of a historic building from, well, it was actually just sort of not in use, into a hotel, hostel kind of situation with ground floor restaurant, rooftop kind of patio area. And it was, you know, lighting, HVAC, windows, seismic improvements, totaling about $3.5 million. And we were able to come in and assist with the financing of that project. So these are actual real places you can go visit in Portland. There's two others. One is already, it was an existing building, and the third is a building that is currently under construction and will actually be Oregon's largest living building, which is, for those of you familiar with various green building standards, living building is really the most aggressive of all of them. So that's really exciting for us. There's a bunch of resources available on our website. So all the paperwork, program guides, capital calculator is propertyfit.org or I'm sorry, propertyfitoregon.com. And you're able, we'll put a link to it in the chat. And then I've got this handy video that I'm not going to show you today because I think I'm going to run short on time. But the video will also be in the link, and it will really just kind of re-emphasize all the things I just talked to you about. All right, so I'm going to skip the questions period just so I could talk about program expansion briefly. And again, I'm kind of running low on time, so I just want to make sure that I keep us on track here. So when it comes to expanding the program or really establishing your own version of this program, all cities and counties in Oregon are authorized by the Oregon legislature to establish these programs. The nice thing about Multnomah County, having spent the past 5 years with our partners at Prosper Portland developing the program, is we've done the hard work for you. It is not easy to set up one of these programs. I think if I knew how hard it was going to be initially, I might have reconsidered. But that being said, you know, in for penny, in for pound, we have developed the program. We have kind of done the brain damage to figure out how to tailor the CPACE model for Oregon. And if you talk to any program administrator across the country, they're going to tell you, you need to tailor. because every state has different laws and different circumstances that will impact the way in which the program looks specifically. But what we're also all trying to do is make sure that the programs look similar enough that the people who finance these projects want to come into our market. And so that's what we've done here. So, the advantages of looking at the PropertyFit model is you don't really have to kind of do the brain damage yourself. We can kind of guide you through it. But the big barrier for other organizations moving in this direction is you probably don't have your own Prosper Portland to implement the program the way we do here in Multnomah County. And I think this is a key barrier that's going to be hard for communities to overcome. Multnomah County, we're the largest county in the state. City of Portland's the largest city in the country. We have a lot of motivated folks, locally that want to see this program succeed. So we have a lot of advantages that other communities may not. And so, I think we need some additional support to help this create this program administrator function. And what the program administrator really does is they take off all the administrative burden from the local jurisdiction, with the exception of sort of making sort of contract monitoring, which we do with Prosper Portland, and they verify that the transaction meets the statutory requirements. They verify that the capital provider is a legitimate organization. They verify that the work was performed as promised, make sure that the liens are filed, and ultimately would carry out a foreclosure if the need were to arise. And although I think that's highly unlikely, it's possible, and ultimately is the reason why lenders are attracted to the PropertyFit model, is because they have the ability, there is that ability to ensure repayment or continuity of payment if for whatever reason the borrower doesn't perform on the debt. So this leads me to what can we do about this big barrier that I see. Well, I think we need a statewide program, a statewide administrator. And the most successful programs, I'm thinking of Connecticut here or Colorado in particular, have a statewide administrator. So there's one program for the entire state. And this is important. I've already talked about sort of time and cost savings, because time intensive and by extension, it takes a lot of staff time, which has a cost to it to develop these programs. It would lower the cost of administering these programs for local groups. There would be consistency. So if you're in Bend, you can access you would be playing by the same rules as you would be in Portland, which makes it easier for developers, makes it easier for lenders to participate. It would help to lower finance costs, would get more market maturity faster, which means we get more energy efficiency and more carbon savings faster. And we can imagine this really being an important factor across the state when it comes to these types of investments in commercial buildings. And the great thing is, like, we've done it. Like, you don't need to figure this all out on your own. Like, we've figured it out. And so you can really leverage the PropertyFit intellectual property that we've developed over the past 5 years. So really, in conclusion, PropertyFit, the CPACE program is turnkey ready. It's ready to be deployed in your community. We really see a demand. I would say that on average we get an inquiry about once a week from someplace outside of Multnomah County saying, "Hey, how do I get this deal financed? Here in Lane County or wherever." I think we really need a statewide program to facilitate growth, and we've been having conversations with state agencies, along those lines, hoping that state agencies can step in and help to facilitate growth. I really think that PropertyFit or the CPACE model is going to become as important for energy efficiency, renewable energy projects in the commercial building sector as the 30-year home mortgages in the residential sector. And when we start thinking about, kind of the current state of the economy, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic crisis, and also the climate crisis and the need to really transform our economy. Financing needs to be a big part of that. And we need to think about not just how do we build back, but how do we build back better? How do we build back stronger? And this is a way that we can do that. The PropertyFit program is a way we can do that without necessarily requiring a whole bunch of investment from the public sector, right? Because we all know that local and state governments are cash strapped at the currently. And I think that we're seeing some, maybe not right now, but sometime in the not so distant future, we're going to see some real capital constraints within the commercial building sector. So this is really going to be a result of the fact that we're all working from home, and there's, employers are going to be questioning the need for a lot of retail, or I'm sorry, not retail, but a lot of big office spaces, and so they're going to be thinking to themselves like, maybe I don't need 1 million square feet of office space. So building owners are really going to have to start thinking to themselves, how do I stay competitive in this market? Banks might be reluctant to loan, thus the capital crunch. I think that a program like PropertyFit can help increase liquidity in the commercial market right when we need it. And we really need a program administrator outside of Multnomah County. And I think really to have a statewide administrator would be the ideal. And this doesn't necessarily need to be a state agency, but I could imagine too a state agency having a nonprofit or for-profit provider that's sort of authorized to work everywhere within the state. So, and I want to say too that the great thing about this is that as with all kind of financial transactions, there's a fee, a closing cost in effect. And that, so basically as transactions close, they spin off some money to cover the cost of administration. So this is a self-financing program in the sense that as transactions happen, the revenue from those transactions can go to pay for the administration of the program. So you don't need public sector money to finance the transactions, and ultimately beyond sort of some initial startup costs, you don't need public sector investment to administer the program. So it's kind of like a win-win, why wouldn't you do it situation, in my humble opinion. So I'm happy to take questions if there are any, and my contact information is up here. So you can feel free to email me. I've sent the slide deck to Diane, and she can certainly share it, and it looks like we're being recorded. So I'm looking at the chat, and I'm going to field the first question here. And how is PropertyFit different from other programs for financing energy efficiency and renewable energy, like U.S. Department of Energy's Renewable Energy and Efficiency and Efficient Energy Project Loan Guarantee Program? All right, so I'm going to say up front that I'm not really familiar with that loan product, so I can't really say with a great deal of confidence how it's different. But a loan guarantee, basically, it is probably similar in the sense that the PropertyFit program secures the debt against the property and carries with it the force of law, in the sense that we can use the local improvement district statutes to accelerate the foreclosure for non-payment. In other words, and so I think the difference there is, like, if a borrower doesn't perform, it sounds like with this loan guarantee, then the federal government steps in and it ensures that the borrower gets paid back. In this case, we are going and actually securing the debt against the building itself. There's not really an outside entity guaranteeing repayment.
Well, and John, also the CPACE loans, they are also run with the building. They don't follow the owner, so that really frees up the owner to go and obtain other financing on other buildings too, right? Wouldn't that be, that's pretty unique to CPACE, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks. Thanks, Diane. You can basically keep the financing with the building, transfer it upon sale. That's